Alright, well, it's not that big of a release this week. Yeah, there just wasn't much stuff, and I think this one might not even be this week's release date. Well, last week's release date. But it's, The Dangers in My Heart, Season 1 Collector's Edition. Can't remember if I got this before, but it is Collector's Edition. Steelbook, you know, I think Steelbook. I'm a bit of a sucker for those. First of all, back, it's Region A, English dub and Japanese with English subtitles. So we've got Steelbook, 2 discs, the notebook. Just flipping through that real quick, you know, it doesn't feel like there's as much I can show, but whatever. Anyways, the only other thing other than this is, I guess Crunchyroll sent me this for ordering a big enough order in May, I guess. Maybe? Anime. So, I know that was very quick, but here's this week's physical anime collection update.
Alright, yeah, well, just go through the anime. So, Season 14, Voyage 4, watch that with my Friday friend. I thought it was interesting. I was definitely playing a little distracted, doing some Terraria stuff. I forgot what I was doing in Terraria, but it was enough that it wasn't something so intense that I wasn't able to pay attention to this in the background. And yeah, I would say entertaining stuff. Trying to think if I have anything to specifically comment on. But I do like how certain things are coming together, certain events that are just like, yeah. In fact, they started bringing up stuff that's just like, okay, little quirkiness things about this, some of the characters here are actually more relevant to bigger elements than I would have initially thought. So, yeah. Overall, I'd say a good voyage, good volume, good stuff. Let's see, beginning after the end, episode 10. I don't remember what happened. To Perfect Saint, episode 10. So I mentioned how last week it felt like certain important things were wrapping up quickly, but based on the pacing of this episode, I'd say it was good timing, because it does feel like it's leading to I would say a good finale. It's weird because a lot of the happenings in the show have not been about the titular character per se, even though it's about her. But yeah, I think I'm appreciating how it's wrapping up. Brilliant Healer's New Life in the Shadows, episode 10. They spent a lot of budget on that one wall. I mean, I don't know if it was really a lot, but it did seem to be way more animated than I would have expected given the contents and the content. Now, granted, we are getting close to the end of the show. Was there anything at the end? I guess they are setting up for a potential season/core finale based on the events that have been happening so far. So, okay. Tigonia. I have episode 8. Was it episode 8? Maybe it was episode 9, and I didn't... Or maybe I didn't watch it. I'm having trouble remembering if the last thing I remember was from 2 weeks ago, but that 8 seems slightly smaller than it should be, so I don't know if I missed an episode there. But I did miss Apothecary Diary Season 2, Episode 43, because, you know, the dub skipped last week, and so obviously I'm watching more of it, and good stuff. Again, that's a show that also brings a lot of stuff together. better than a lot of the other stuff out there. So, like, I compliment One Piece, but Apothecary Diaries just does it in a more purposeful feeling fashion, I guess. Fun stuff. Old Country Bumpkin to Master Swordsman, episode 10. Let me see. I guess we had the little thing at the end of the previous episode, which, this episode explored just a little bit. But I'd have to say that I think the fighting in this one was actually neat. I wouldn't say it's something that I look at it and just say, okay, absolutely everybody has to see this because it's just spectacular. But I think there's appreciable elements to it where you kind of see what our main character has done. It's like it ties into some of the growth of other characters, which is kind of okay with him because he's an instructor. At least he sees himself an instructor, and this show is supposed to be about how he's more than just a good instructor. He's just really good at sword fighting in general, and there was just a lot of neat things about it. And yeah, I'm not sure what else to say. Evil Lord of an Intergalactic Empire, episode 10. I think this one's setting up for core season finale. I thought there were elements of this episode where this one was also a lot of fighting, but I also thought it was surprisingly good. Not like great, everybody has to watch it, but I think there were certain, again, elements of it where I think the way they portrayed certain scenes felt like it kind of did a good job of feeling a sort of gravitas to this situation. And while that's, like gravitas is usually used to refer to the weight of importance, and that's certainly sort of an element here, there's also the portion of this where I guess the scale helps with the gravitas. It helps feel that the scale is big and notable. What else happened in it? I'm just trying to remember, but overall I thought it was entertaining. They introduced her. They introduced him doing that. I forget how it ended, because I don't think the battle itself ended, but I did think that it was probably going to lead to a final confrontation, and then we'll have another episode after that that's kind of a follow-up. That's what I felt like. Anwar Tellemeister, episode 11. Entertaining enough, I guess. Interesting things about our main character, history with stuff, and interactions between people. I do sort of feel like Kurt has this ability. He's the main character. I'm not sure why I remember his name. Do I remember anybody else's name? Maybe I have vague ideas. But anyways, the point is, he does have this knack for being so bad at coming up with the right understanding, even if somehow his misunderstanding leads things to the right place. Although I do kind of wonder if maybe this time it felt a little too far. I don't want to elaborate too much more, but it just sort of was like, yeah, it felt a little too far. But I think the show knew that, because that's why they had a certain character react a certain way. It's just sort of like, yeah, I can kind of understand that. But it didn't wrap what was going on up, and I'm curious to see what it's about to do next. Once again, Gorilla God Go To Girl kind of just didn't get watched. Again, I'm spending a lot of time on Terraria, and there's got to be certain elements of an episode that interest me to bring me out of that. And for a lot of these things, it's that there's actual stories wrapping up, whereas Gorilla God's Go To Girl kind of hadn't established a story that I'm like, okay, I have to see the ending to that. To me, at least. There's elements of something in there, but I guess it just hasn't grabbed me enough to make me spend that time. Like, I keep thinking I'll catch up on a Tuesday, but then I end up playing a lot of Terraria. But I'll talk about that a bit. Reincarnated as a neglected noble, raising my brother with memories from my past life, episode 9. At least I hope it was episode 9. I think that's about right, because it feels like that one is slightly later started than the other ones. But anyways, I'm just trying to remember how it ended, because I thought the elements that happened in it were pretty entertaining and in line with what the show has been doing up to this point. It's just that at episode 9, you're getting to the last quarter, so there's a good question of, is it setting itself up for a good core series season sort of finale? And I don't remember the end of the episode enough to tell you for sure, but entertaining enough. Then last but not least, we have Sword of the Demon Hunter, episode 11, which does seem to be setting itself up to some sort of final story for the core. I don't know that it necessarily feels like a season series finale, but I don't know that it can properly do that. But I'd say it's just on pace for being its normal entertainingness, a kind of laid backness, despite, the kind of tropes I guess you would expect with this kind of show's setup, even though the first episode, which was really 3 episodes long, kind of demonstrated that it was pacing things differently. I don't know, still interesting, entertaining. Anyways, that's all the anime I watched this week. As for Terraria, I finished Expert and Master Mode, which basically means that I've gotten all the Expert-only items and all the Master-only items, and in that regard, there's no more difficulty level items to get. So like there is a legendary difficulty which comes from playing on master difficulty on certain worlds, and I am going to do that. I don't know if I'm going to actually play through and try and beat it all the way. But there's also a unique boss that shows up there that's not counted as a different boss in the game's code. It is treated as kind of a combination of other bosses, quite literally, and I'm going to play that. But otherwise, I think a lot more of my focus is on things that I guess I would classify as just things I'm doing on my own time, sort of. So my brothers do have a server, and I guess I'm looking for building project in there, something that it is what it is. Okay, yeah, and yeah, I guess I have that to consider, but yeah, for the most part, I'm just, I guess doing stuff there, collecting certain collectible things in the game. I'm trying to think if it's something that should be shown, but I guess if y'all really want to, I could probably, like, post stuff to the Discord at some point, but Terraria is an old game at this point, so I'm not sure if that's too needed. And I don't know if I'll finish what I'm doing there, if my brothers will get tired of this, but I've got at least something to do that I'm enjoying doing. Oh well. Do I have anything else to really talk about outside of that? Nothing comes to mind. We do have Father's Day coming up this coming Sunday. I think it caught my mom by surprise to hear about that today. So there's plans being made right now. Maybe Dad wasn't aware either. It does tend to be a little more overlooked. Although for us, it's easy to remember Mother's Day because it happens so close to one of my brother's birthdays that usually we're getting together to celebrate both. But, gonna try to come up with a good way to thank my dad for being my dad. Is there anything else to really talk about? I don't know. I guess that kind of wraps things up. Not a lot of anime for me to work with for AI images, so they might be a little strange this week for any of y'all who care about those. For those of you that don't, feel free to continue ignoring them. That's okay. Y'all have a nice week.